recently I had the really excellent opportunity to go to Airway Heights Correctional Center a couple times this fall, and the folks in the Buddhist group there wanted to learn about karma, and they really were eager to learn about this topic. And if you know anything about the topics of karma, it can be a little, every once in a while things get a little awkward when you're talking with people who are incarcerated because of the situation. And I think, how is that? And as maybe because I plan to talk on karma the next few BBCs that I do, you might imagine why that would be. First is because you have to develop a lot of conviction in it, or faith, and they hate the word conviction, so I'm all the time trying not to say the word conviction because it carries a very different meaning for them than it does for us. And then the other day, oftentimes we use the example of killing, and I think actually probably some of the people in the room I'm speaking to have actually had that, and so I always feel kind of like, how is this going to go? But they're so eager, and what's really true here, what this really makes me think about is that we are all inmates. And that's the thing we have to realize. And that's why it's easy to move forward, because we have to put everything in that context that we're trapped here in cyclic existence. And we really need to shake ourselves up to get out. So this topic, I've kind of gotten the habit of, when I go there, to place it where it is in the Lam Rim, and I think it's good to think of as it adds to the topic. So this is in the first scope, and there we've thought about our precious human life and our fantastic opportunity, and how transient it is, and how we don't want to end up with a lot of suffering. And so we've got that as like the aspiration to get us going. And then what do we do then? Well, the first thing we do is we turn to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha by taking refuge. And then the very next thing that we're supposed to do is we're supposed to actually actualize this first scope, is to think about karma, our actions and their results. So kind of really, it's kind of what Venerable Chodron says, like, you know, what's the first thing the Buddha taught? How to clean up your act. It's kind of like that. So that's and that's where this falls in the Lam Rim, and that would be for having good circumstances in the future of a precious human life. But we want to put this in a much greater context of thinking about being free of all of cyclic existence and freeing others as well. So. I think that these quotes from Geshe Sopa are just so helpful for us. And so I'm just going to spend a little time today talking about a few of his quotes. First, he talks about this topic of karma, and he says it's a difficult area, especially at the beginning, because cause and effect of karma is so subtle. And it's beyond the understanding of ordinary people. We don't really know what the long-term results of our actions are. We can't see that. And these things are going to take lifetimes to ripen, so that's really out of our reach. So the detailed workings are going to be really impossible for us to grasp at the beginning. And we have to spend a lot of time studying this topic in order to really know that. But I would say, from most people I meet, people have some sense of what goes around comes around. I mean, you don't have to convince people of that in our culture, because we have very much a scientific background. We're brought up with cause and effect, and so really we that part we get. So what's important to understand is that karma is more than cause and result, first off, which we won't get to today, but it's much more than that. It has more to do with the ethical dimension of our actions. So that's a really important point. So this topic is extremely important because the whole Buddhist structure, from the very beginning all the way up to liberation, is built upon this attitude of trust in the action of karma. And so if your practice isn't built upon that trust, then you can't reach the highest goal. And so that kind of just gives us the big context for this. But then there comes kind of our day-to-day life of what we're doing, how we're living. And this is where I find this to be very immediate. Without developing our ethical conduct, we can't really develop spiritually, is what he's saying. And here's the example. Because if we do develop our ethical conduct, you can be around things that you desire or things that maybe perturb you, and you can be around them without any danger, because now you are controlling your actions by controlling your mind. And what allows us to do that, what he's pointing to, is our trust in the law of karma is governing our mind. So we actually kind of buy into this through our own practice and through our own understanding. So how does that really look? Because we find that we're creatures of habit a lot of times. It really comes down to a trust that leads to a kind of mental resolve to make the effort consistently, restraining the mind again and again. We were just laughing about this morning. We even displayed it this morning. We set our motivation, we have our little meeting, and right in the midst of it, we're right into problems. We start with our motivation, they last that long. We're so bound by our conditioning, so bound. But this is why this is such an important topic, because we have to have a belief in karma to know that results are going to happen. And one of those is that as we again and again work to restrain our mind, we're going to create new habits. We're going to actually be able to have a mind that's tamed. And then we can control our behavior. Because the mind controls the behavior, right? So if your mind is not tamed, your behavior is uncontrolled. If you tame your mind, you can tame your behavior. So that's really the biggest force here that really is helping us, is our own inner development. And that's why this is such an important topic. So that's just like, I think, lays the groundwork for understanding more about this topic. And you can just see it in your own experience whenever you if you know what the result of something was going to be. It's kind of like knowing the advantages and the disadvantages, and you know that really, really clearly. So much easier to change what you're going to do. So may we take this really into our days again and again, and help ourselves to have tame minds that can really bring out our best inner qualities and develop them fully.